Good afternoon, fellows. Thank you so much for joining in on our last session. Our last expert
அமர்வில் இணைந்தவர்களுக்கெல்லாம் நன்றி. Shanuki De Alwis.
Already been acquainted with her over the past 2 sessions where she did an amazing job in introducing content creation. And yes, a good hi. I would like highs back too. And we would, she also did the panel discussion yesterday as well. And today she will be closing off our expert session and our 5-day training program before we go into our next phase of the fellowship program. So we're excited to inform you more on that later on after this session. But without further ado, I'll actually give it over to Shanuki. Go ahead, Shanuki.
Hi, so it's like the final closing thing, right? So no pressure to keep you interested, because I know everybody's like probably waiting, to party or whatever it is to that final, done, completed kind of thing. So yeah, luckily I'm not going to talk for 2 hours today, but they tell me that I have to talk for 1. So sorry in advance about that. Right, so I'm just going to pull up a PowerPoint deck because I was asked to speak to you on disrupting the status quo. Kind of breaking barriers, making your mark, and yeah, just standing out and breaking clutter out there whilst trying to make a difference out in the world. Right, so obviously there's no scientific formula for how this happens, because if you look at change makers around the world, everybody does it in different ways. I'm just gonna share with you, all I can do is reference myself, right? And look at my own story in how I've managed to sort of make a few tweaks in the world or in my universe, and what my learnings from that have been. And that's what I'd like to share with you. I think it works for me, but I need to be also conscious enough to tell you that what works for me doesn't have to work for everybody else, right? And that's kind of the ultimate, I think, underlining thing that a lot of these motivational speakers and coaches kind of don't do, is tell people that there's a lot about you that comes into this formula of how you make your mark and how you disrupt status quos to sort of stand your ground and break ceilings out there. I'm going to tell you what works for me, but what I've done is I've kind of packaged it in a way that it should work for anyone who applies these learnings to themselves. So the thing about making your mark and the thing about making a difference, because now you've gone through this fellowship academy, you've learned all these different skills, and you've kind of now amped up what you knew before you joined, right? And now you have all these new learnings and this new motivation to go forth and conquer the world with your messages. But how do you make sure that it's impactful and effective? And a lot of people assume that, when you have a session called Making Your Mark, Breaking Barriers, shattering glass ceilings, blah, 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 everybody usually comes to these sessions with the hopes of, oh, what do I have to do out there? Who do I have to work with? Or what are the kind of impacts that I need to have out there? What is it about the external world that I need to use and utilize and tweak to make my success? My thing is, it's completely different for me. What I found is, it's not about the outside world. It's about the inside world. It's about me. It's about you. What's going on in you, that you have to build yourself and make your mark with yourself first. And I don't know if you watched this movie, but it's something that I actually hold true to myself and has become one of my affirmations is, if you build it, they will come. And the building process is about yourself. And so what I'm going to take you through as quickly as I can, because I do have a tendency to talk a lot, you know that, is that this process I'm going to take you through is self-development. So get ready for your motivational speech on self-care and self-development. I hope this helps. I'm calling this the Drama Queen's Guide to Disrupting the Status Quo, because the way I disrupt is being a bit of a drama queen about it. And I am less and less ashamed of it the older I get. So I'm going through 5 rules, unlike last time where I had many. Today I have just 5 main rules, and I'm going to take you through all 5 of them. The first rule is this purpose or this journey of self-discovery. And I think before you go out there as a content creator, as a voice, as a change maker, as a representative of your community or your cause, you have to
நோக்கத்தின் பிரதிநிதியாக நீங்கள் இருக்கும் பொழுது நீங்கள்
and
ඔබ දැනගන්න ඕනේ ඔබ කවුද කියන එක. තමන්ට කියලා මොකක් හරි අනන්‍ය
identifying as a queer person or identifying as a feminist, identifying as a woman, identifying as an animal lover does not work. It's not enough. Yes, that's a big part of our authenticity and our originality, but there's so much more discovery that you have to go through as a person within how you identify yourself, to be able to understand what is it about you that you need to communicate out in the world through your work. It's not just your identity that you need to communicate. It's got to be something that the world can benefit from, and how you contribute of that self to the world. So unless you discover yourself, this is kind of the first rule to breaking barriers out there, is unless you discover yourself, you're going to create a character or a persona that other people may create for you. And everything you do going forward will depend on other people's opinions of you. And that is a harsh lesson that I have learned. It took me 42 years to learn it, and I am still learning it, because I am somebody who was raised in a household, in a society, and in an environment where it was always about pleasing other people's expectations of who you are. And, trying to compete with the world, trying to measure up to who I thought were the ideals, trying to sort of make people happy. And I'm sure everybody, irrespective of whether I'm a woman or if somebody's a queer person, or if somebody's a Black person, or if somebody's an Asian person, I think that's something that we all resonate with, is the fact that we live this life trying to please, or trying to conform to norms and social expectations. And often you find that society is a place where if you fit the box, if you fit the norm, then you are more acceptable, and then your power is greater. And we assume that the power to make change is therefore fitting these ideas. I learned the hard way that it's not, because it's just so super stressful trying to fit in rather than just being myself, and in being myself, standing out. And being noticed, and my voice being noticed, more simply because I learned how to become less and less careful, or less and less, I think, critical and self-censoring of myself. So discover yourself first. Otherwise, you have to depend on other people's opinions. And those people are just like you and me. They don't know who they are. So they don't know what they want. And this is why it's important. And for me, the process of discovering myself, it took a bit, and I've tried to simplify it. I call this, who the hell are you? It's like brulee, right? Asking myself, like, who are you? Like, really, who are you? And you need to ask yourself, who are you? And Shanuki De Alwis, I think, is a lot of things to a lot of people. And I've learned to be okay with that. I've learned not to be a one-trick horse. And there can be others out there who are not one-trick horses. There are people who are out there who are very consistently just one identity, which is amazing as well, because they're much stronger that way. I am much stronger because of my low boredom threshold that gives me sort of diverse abilities or things to talk about. And, given the occasion, sometimes I can be the little girl, the woman, raise my voice as the woman and represent my femininity. I can use it. I do have it. It's not inauthentic to me, but I do use it when I need to have a softer approach and tell people, what I want to say and work towards my cause. There is a kinder, more empathetic approach that I need to take to certain things to make the changes I want to make. And then sometimes I am the person who needs to also pull into my resource bank, my knowledge, use my expertise, use my little bit of boss ladiness, to try and get through to people. And that expertise comes in handy as well. Sometimes I need to be cool. Like if I'm doing online workshops and sessions and I know that listening to somebody on the screen for 1 hour is totally boring. So I have to put on the drama, or I have to come up with like little trendy things to say. And I have to relate, even if I'm using my social media and knowing my audience, relating to people. So I have to have that personality as well. Like I've got to be the cool older auntie, the cooler auntie, or the cooler grandma, as it's going to be the case very soon. And sometimes I know that I have to be a bitch. Sorry for the language, but I have to be a bitch because there are certain things that I fight for, and
சில இடங்களுக்காக நாங்கள்
and sometimes
උනන්දුවක් දක්වන දේවල් තියෙනවා. එතනදී අපි යම් ඒ
people are just sort of out there to destroy you if you don't have those horns that kind of make you a little bit intimidating. So these are different facets of who I am. I have a whole multitude more, but these are kind of strong, I guess, avenues of myself that I use in my work. And it's important for you also as a communicator, as a content creator. What is it in you that you can pull out? This self-discovery, these personality traits within you. What are you going to use? And then, building that up to understand and put that together to make yourself authentically you. So what I'm basically saying is you identify as a queer person, and just going out there saying, I identify as a queer person, here's what I have to say about, queer representation and about diversity and inclusivity. That's fine, but what's going to make you different out there from every other queer person saying that? So what is it about you, the person, that's going to make it different, and your message therefore being different? So that's kind of the package I'm talking about. So self-discovery is all about figuring out this packaging that you have and being authentic in figuring that out. And my second rule towards breaking barriers is this little Japanese word. I don't know how many of you have heard of it before. It's called Ikigai. And in English, we call it purpose. Ikigai is kind of this Japanese secret to what makes you wake up every day, motivated to keep changing the world. Because when you try to break barriers out there, everything is going to work against you until you have reached a place where no one questions you, which is highly impossible or improbable, possible, but improbable and difficult to get to unless you come to that point. And until you come to that point, the world is going to question you. And something needs to keep driving you forward, to keep making you go. And Ikigai, or the word purpose, is what I think works for me and works for a lot of other people that I have helped, or that I've been able to help, because they've said this really works. So that's why I'm sharing it with you. It's your reason for being, why you're here. And that, I think, some of us take our lifetimes in finding out. Some of us just don't discover that at all. But it's important that we try. Because we try too late sometimes. It takes us like retirement and self-reflection of all the years we've wasted in our life to finally realize, oh, this is why I belong here in this world. So we need to actively and consciously try, find your Ikigai, that purpose. And when I say purpose, it's really easy for me to use that word and, get this kind of fluffy definition of purpose and say, this is who you are forever. It's not the case. The statistic or the scientific fact is human beings, you and I, we change. Every 3 years, our needs change, our wants change. And you probably realize that, for instance, when you're in a relationship, you get into this relationship starry-eyed, you know, rose-colored glasses, and oh my God, and he or she is the one, and all of that. And then 3 years down the line, you're bored to death, and you find yourself might be casting an eye out at somebody else. So your needs change, and that's normal. That's actually human. And similarly, your purpose also, your purpose changes in life as you grow, as you evolve, as you have more experiences in the world. And when you're breaking barriers out there, and when you're making a mark, sometimes the reason why you're doing it can also change. But that doesn't mean you don't continue to do it. It's just that this self-examination and understanding that, you know, and acceptance that you don't have to stick to that one purpose for the rest of your life. Figure out what you want to do and why you want to do it now, but understand that that too can evolve, just like you. So as the slide says, your purpose in life is not fixed forever. There are many reasons why you may not even know it right now. Sometimes it's because the world is telling us who we need to be, or the world's problems are just too big and you don't understand how you can actually make that tangible difference. And we feel too small, which is very real, right? I mean, you can feel so insignificant, or you can feel like it's just one against millions, or just a handful against a whole country. It feels like that, especially when you're from like a victimized or marginalized part of society. Or maybe we've gone through so much trying to make a change, or trying to speak for ourselves, trying to represent ourselves, and we're just exhausted now. Because no matter you take 3 steps forward and 10 steps backwards sometimes with progress. And it happens a lot in this part of the world. So you don't know where you're going to get that energy to keep fighting, right? And it happens to all of us. The older you get, the more jaded you get. I am like a living example of that. So it's okay to realize that this purpose with which you keep driving forward, that can change according to your environment, according to what you're going through or what the world is going through. You can change your purpose, that's fine. But don't live a life without purpose. Because if you don't have a purpose, that purpose is not going to shine through for anybody else to be inspired by it. So here is the art of Ikigai, the process of finding your purpose. Ask yourselves these 4 questions, and you can write this down. I will share this deck later on. You can have it with you so that, you know, if you want to reflect on this later, we don't have time to do it one by one today, but these are lists that you write. So there are 4 elements of Ikigai. And those 4 elements are: what do you love? What are you good at? What does the world need? And what can you get paid for? Because it's really difficult to keep changing the world if you're broke. Right? So you're going to be like more kind of focused on trying to make money and pay your bills than you are on changing the world sometimes. And that is a huge barrier for a lot of us who are trying to be change makers. So this is a list. You can write as many things as you like. What do you love? What inspires you? What makes you cry when somebody questions it? You know, it could be like the most absurd of things, like I love socks. I love scrapbooking. It can be things like that even. That's fine. Just loves, just things that really, really ignite you. What are you good at is different, because sometimes you can love something and not be good at it. So you have to reflect on what are the skills that you actually do have. Shanuki, what are you good at? You can talk a lot, right? What do you love? Meeting people, making new friends, having conversations. So do you see how I'm making connections there? So what you're good at is all these little skills. Sometimes it might be even things that you didn't realize. You can ask your friends and your family also, what do you think I'm good at? Because sometimes a lot of us, we have a lot of self-doubt. We don't realize some cool things about ourselves. We might not think that we are as good a friend as somebody else thinks we are, you know, and they can say, you have a lovely way of like spreading joy. You know, when I talk to you, I feel good. That's something you're good at. You might not have realized it until somebody told you that. So ask, do the research, ask people that you've impacted or been with in your life, ask them what they think you're good at. And ask yourself also what you think you're good at. Ego is fine in this instance. Ikigai requires a little bit of ego. Then you ask yourself, what can I get paid for? So what are the skills that I have? What are the opportunities out there, the jobs, the connections? Where can I go to monetize these skills of mine, right? And what does the world need is the most important question of all, because especially in terms of, we're talking about media advocacy for queer representation. What does the world need? What kind of emotions do we need to tap into in the world? What kind of messaging does the world need to learn? What kind of empathy does the world need to improve on? What does the world need? What does my community out there in the world need? Or what do other people who are against my community, what do they need? Understanding that. So when you write those things down and these four things come together, you'll find that there are common links. When you write all these things down, you'll find one or two small little common links. And you put those together like a Venn diagram. And when it all comes together, that's kind of your purpose. That's your Ikigai. So that common feature is the holy grail, right? And it sometimes takes a whole lifetime to find it, but that's okay. Never stop searching. At least you know, okay, between what you love and what the world needs, if you find the common link, you know that you found yourself a mission, because there's things you love and things that you can give to the world with it. If there's something common between what you love and what you're good at, you know that's your passion, right? Because you love it, you're upgrading, you're interested, so you're passionate about that thing. If you find common links between what you're good at and what you get paid for, that's a possible profession. That's something that can keep your money flowing so that you can use that money to do things for the world. What does the world need? Plus, what can you get paid to do? That's your vocation. So you can either find your passion, mission, profession, or vocation, or you can find, in a very rare instance, something that brings all of them together, and that's your Ikigai, that's your purpose. And when you know what your purpose is, your content, what you tell the world, how you tell it to the world, what you represent, and who you become, becomes that much more powerful out there. And that's kind of a secret that I have tapped into in breaking barriers and making a mark. It's that sense of purpose that drives me forward, and the ability to communicate this purpose to others so that I inspire others with that purpose. Number 3, so you discovered yourself, then you discovered your purpose or your Ikigai. And once you've discovered that, then you need to start building your brand, because obviously there's no point in me saying, oh, this is who I am and this is my purpose, and then keeping it to myself. That's not going to change anything, right? So there is an art of psychological marketing that we have to do in the world, because we live in this tribe of humans. And in order to get through to people, we have to build a brand around it. It's marketing at the end of the day. And to be heard, you need to be a brand. A brand is something that people buy into, that people trust, people believe in. And so you have to consider yourself your biggest product. And there are different ways in which you can build a personal brand. But essentially, and I'm condensing this a lot because that's a whole program by itself, but a brand, your personal brand, is how you see yourself and how others see you. Where does that meet, right? So when you leave a room, what other people say about you, that's basically what your personal brand is. And here there's a little exercise I would love you all to do as homework. Please write it down. This is my homework today, is you write down 5 things about yourself, how you see yourself, right? 5 things. With me, I can say, oh, I'm a chatterbox. I see myself as a chatterbox. I see myself as high energy sometimes, most times. I see myself as balding, could be. I see myself as someone who's able to communicate well, or can relate to people. So there could be 5 things that you write about yourself. Then ask somebody else. someone who knows you. It could be a colleague, a friend, a family member. Don't give them your list. Ask them to write 5 things about how they see you, what they see in you, right? And then take those 2 notes and compare them. See if there's a common point, common feature. How you see yourself versus how that is part of your personal brand. That is a big part of your personal brand. That's a building block for you. That's something that you need to build on. So that's kind of a little exercise that I'd love you all to do when you have time. Build your personal brand. And throughout history, whether they knew it or not, we've had personal brands that are
தனிப்பட்ட பிராண்டுகள் இருக்கின்றன ஒன்றாக வேலை
make an impact.
හදාගත් අය ඉන්නවා. ඒවා අද දක්වා ක්‍රියාත්මක වෙලා තියෙනවා.
Become powerful personal brands. So we've had personal brands who are identified as the ultimate change makers. You have the thinkers, you have the doers, you have personal brands who are seen as good, the good people. You have the bad brands, still brands, because still there's been sort of global impact in how people saw them. Then you have the brands with integrity, the wise brands. Then you have these brands. The less I say about these brands, the better, but they're brands. They're brands. And there is still like a massive following, So basically, what is your personal brand? And if you even look at a Sri Lankan context, and I'm just taking this because these are 2 brands that lots of people can relate to. So they do the same things, or they're known for doing the same things. They're pretty much on equal levels when it comes to career and what their profession has been. But if you think about it, like how the world sees them, and how Sri Lanka, for instance, the market, how considers them, one brand will always be stronger. One brand will always be more trustworthy. One brand will always be more reliable. One brand would always represent more integrity. One brand would be listened to more than another brand. And that is all part of what your personal brand is. And you have to look at yourself and ask yourself, therefore, what is your personal brand and what are you going to stand for? And what is the world going to take from you? So these are a few ways in which you define your personal brand. Again, you can sort of reflect on this. So what kind of content are you going to be posting out there? And these are all very important in making that mark, right? What kind of content are you going to be posting? Is it visual, written? What is it? What are your values? And how are you going to get them across in your work? Who is your current audience? Who are you talking to? What kind of audiences do you want to attract? And that's got to be synonymous with who you are and what your brand is as well. So there's no point in Nike selling its shoes to grandmas who are in crochet clubs. It doesn't work. So there is a problem there. So you have to find your connect. What do you want to achieve with this brand you've built? What are you most knowledgeable and passionate about? And this is an opportunity for you, because if your brand needs to work towards something, and if you need to make your mark in one particular area of communication, if you find that you don't have enough knowledge, that's your opportunity to amp it up, to upgrade. Otherwise, you look at what are the skills and knowledge that you have that you can use to do what you need to do in a different way. What tone of voice would you like to use as a personal brand? And that's important, because I think in this world of influencers or influencers, everybody's trying to fit like this cookie cutter mold. I feel a lot of the influencers, if you take it as a generic, and then they don't really stand out. And the ones who stand out are usually the ones who have a different kind of voice, because that's kind of essentially what makes them stand out. How will you best communicate your message to your target audience? And who are you? And what is your position in the industry that you represent, or the community that you represent? Also, interesting question to ask yourself, because how can you get yourself into a position of power in your area so that your expertise is accepted and acknowledged by the world you're trying to make a difference in. And that's very, very important for you to have that kind of credibility when you try to break barriers. It's not, I think even if you look at, like Greta, she started making movements because she stood out with a completely different brand and a different voice. But now, over the years that she has built herself, her levels of expertise have built to become kind of a global voice in the cause that she cares about. So it's kind of that, like, how do you build yourself to that level of a position of power to be heard? And that power doesn't have to be in an organization. It can be power in the cause, right? So the more vocal you are and the more credible you are. So here is, for this particular forum and this kind of work that I do, this is how brand Shanuki wants to be seen. I don't know if I am or not, but it is something that I want to be seen as. So I've listed it down. And so I consciously work on these elements of myself to be able to succeed in this area and to kind of make my mark in this area. So I want to be a kick-ass speaker, right? So part of those features that I want to work on are, I want to be inspirational. I want to be seen as that. My brand needs to be seen as confident. My brand needs to be seen as knowledgeable. I need that credibility. And of course, I want to be entertaining, because I think that's what makes my brand a little different from a lot of other similar speakers out there. I want to be kick-ass because I'm fun to listen to, which I'm working on. But what is it that can give me an extra little bit of push in this industry? Because there are lots of kick-ass speakers who are inspirational, confident, knowledgeable, entertaining, blah, 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 blah. Maybe I can look to myself and discover my super strength, which is the fact that I'm female. And if I look at the industry, there's not enough of them out there. And I can represent. So if I can turn my personal brand from kick-ass speaker to kick-ass female speaker, I've suddenly made it a little bit easier for myself, because then I'm competing, I think, with other females out there. And then I can look at, okay, what are my strengths that they don't bring into the game? What can I utilize? So yeah, it is a marketing game. And this is what I do for myself. What is the personal brand I want to create in this particular instance? So now it's your turn, and you can write those things down as well. Ask yourself, who do you want to be? What does your personal brand need to represent? What are the features or characteristics that the world needs to know about you? And therefore, that takes your self-discovery process. You have to figure out who you are first. Then you figure out, what is my purpose? Why am I here? What do I want to build from it? What is the brand that I want to create? These are the things. And then you have like kind of a laundry list of things that you can work on. So please do this for yourself. And then it comes to developing yourself to be able to market yourself better, to be able to be more acceptable. So there might be things that you find when you list these things out in your personal branding bucket list. There are things that you need to work on. You might not be there yet. None of us reach there yet. And I think the ego is our biggest barrier, is when we think we know it all. We don't. So there's so much more to learn out there. And that takes a lot of planning. It takes a lot of self-motivation. You can't give up. And it's very easy for someone like me to give up, because I have high functioning depression. I have anxieties. I get really bored really easily. I'm very, very, I get very dejected, when things don't work. So I'm impatient. So there's a lot of things that I need to do to keep my motivation up, to keep going at it. Training, whatever training you need to upskill yourself, the creativity you need to use to be unique out there as a voice. What do you need to develop? What your vision can of this ideal world you want to create out there with your voice, and that vision also can evolve and change and develop alongside you. What are your goals? And goals are really easy, and goals are really a smart thing to do, because a goal is like sort of, I give myself, in 3 months, I want to be able to achieve this. and I need to be realistic about it. I need to time it. I need to budget it, all that. I want to do this in 3 months. And then I break it down to what do I need to do every day or every week to close that gap, to get there. So I break it down into smaller tasks. And that gives me an opportunity to look at the, where do I need to go? Who do I need to speak to? How do I need to get my voice out? How do I need to be heard in this area? How often do I need to do it? So if you have a timed goal like 3 months and you break it down, then you're actually working towards something. Then you're not waiting for someday my prince will come. It's not that, right? And of course, what learning do you need to do? What learning do you need to expand? Because we don't know it all. And the more you know, the more you grow. And then we come to number 4 in this 5 rules. And number 4 is, now you know what your personal brand is. Now you know who you are, what your mission is or your purpose is. But how are you going to be seen and be heard out there? To make a mark, to break that ceiling, or to smash your way through and be seen, and or for your message to go through, you have to be seen, you have to be heard. And how are you going to do that? And right now we have all these different medias available to us, right? So we've got a plethora of social media access. We don't have to have money to have terrestrial TV stations and radio stations and newspapers helping us. But what I've learned is, yes, those are very good. That's like an easy way to reach the masses. But what's worked for me is how I've been able to break barriers is because I've been using my own media, my own access to free media, and I've been doing it often and loudly enough that the mass medias have taken notice. So then I have been invited, by happy coincidence, I've been blessed to have been invited by newspapers who want to do an interview, or by a magazine that wants to, do a feature on stuff I've done. Or, I've been invited onto TV programs or radio programs to, share my thoughts, because I built my personal brand with myself first and with my universe first. So that's how easy it is today. You don't have to immediately be on a podium in the spotlight in front of millions to become powerful. If you build it, they will come. And that's kind of what's worked for me. And I think that's kind of what will work for you as well. Don't wait for the opportunity to come to you. Create that opportunity yourself, and then they will take notice. Because when you're different, when you're authentic, when you've got a message that's important, and when what you are doing is showing the world that it can be done, then they do take notice, because not everybody else is doing it the way you would. So start building yourself on social media, or you can even do it on the streets. I mean, street performances, again, if you have the balls to do it. By balls, I mean, metaphorically. If you can get out there, if you're a person who can be out there, use that. I have literally like gone onto streets with a rabana and a tambourine and sung songs and done strange things. Someday I will tell you the story of how I stood on Walking Street, Pattaya, the red light district, and sang Broadway tunes, just to get a message out to people. It's like the most random thing, but yeah, because I have the ability to perform. So if you have that skill, use it, right? And here's the thing about being seen and being heard. What's important is either you say something new, or you say something that's already there, but say it in a new way. And that's how the world takes notice. The new is what's the common feature here. And if you actually think about it, if you think about like gurus, people that we look up to, like the Robin Sharma, Jay Shetty, I can't think of very many, Oprah, what do they say? They're like on this whole multi-billionaire level of, stardom, celebrity. And when they say something, the world is like, yes, queen, and all of that, right? But what is it that they say that hasn't been said before? Not much if you analyze it. But it's the way they say it. It's how they built a brand around themselves that when they say it, we take more notice. So it is easier than you think to break barriers and to make a noise, right? If you don't have it. Now, if you take like scientists, if you take the Elon Musks of the world, or the Richard Bransons, the Steve Jobses, they've come up with new things. They're innovators. So they've actually made a mark through the new stuff that the world has never seen. But you don't necessarily have to have access to that science or knowledge, or the power to be able to build something completely new. You can say the same thing just using your personal brand and your personality to say it in a way that people do take notice. So I think it is within each of us to find what that is in ourselves. And I don't think that's rocket science, and I don't think it's impossible for anyone to do, right? So yeah, find that niche for yourself, your cause, your message, your representation. How do you say it in a new way that people haven't heard, that it's not become cliche and boring and oh my God, like another queer person making a statement, oh my God, another Karen is what I've been noticed. But yeah, how can you do it in a way that people take notice? So say something new, or say something in a new way. And these are 6 C's that I've put together for building or being seen and being heard, which is our 4th point. And they're pretty easy, pretty accessible to anyone. One is charisma. If you're going to be out there, you have to be. If you want to make a difference, you have to be out there. There is charisma. I'm sorry, I need to correct myself here. There are people who are not naturally performers, and I understand that. Doesn't mean that they don't have the power to make a difference, right? Because there are ways in which you can make a difference as from the background as well. There are people who are meant to be right in front and represent, like be loud and all that. And then there are people who are pulling the strings behind the scenes, who are actually making things work and making those changes, not necessarily putting themselves out there, the machination behind you. So I think the production teams and the behind the scenes are more important sometimes than the person in the spotlight, because the person in the spotlight, when the spotlight goes off, is nothing without the production behind. And you can, if you're not someone who's out there to perform in the world, can create your change by being someone in charge of the behind the scenes. So don't be disheartened thinking, I don't have this voice, I don't have this personality. It's not the case at all. You can actually make that change. So charisma can work in different ways. You can use your charisma to actually make people trust you enough to give you work to do, where you can make changes through that work. But otherwise, for me, the charisma C is where I've been able to command attention because of the way I speak, because of things that I've learned in my theater career, presentation skills, being able to walk into a room and making sure everybody's watching if I want to make them watch. And I'm proud of those skills that I have, and I try to use them. So command that attention. The second C is communicate. You have to keep talking. Your message cannot stop. If you're fighting for something, you cannot stop. You cannot rest on your laurels. There are little successes and victories you will come across. And it's very easy to become addicted to those and sort of ride on that high and go, I'm the king of the world. It's not the case, because, we talked about the fact that people forget very easily. So your wins today, tomorrow, the world will forget. So you have to keep talking. You have to keep your message up, and you need to connect. It's very important to be seen and to be heard. You need to find your tribe. So connect. Make sure that you find all the avenues that you can reach out to, experts that you can make friends with, people who are in these movements, in these causes, who can you network with to build your resource base, because they will give you the opportunities. I mean, it's because I worked in advertising. I made sure I talked to people in the industry. Whenever my office sent me out of the country, I talked to people in the industry on a global level. I pestered the hell out of creative leaders overseas who didn't know who the hell I was, but I'd send them email after email and message after message, just trying to, get into their heads so that they recognize me at the end of the day. And I did become a pest, but I did start conversations that way until they realized, okay, this little brown something from, that south of India, okay, she's not going to shut up unless I actually listen to what she has to say. And then I start a conversation, and then I make friends, and then they're like, okay, and then I can use that swag, and talk about it to other people here saying, oh, I had a conversation with so and so, and they're like, oh my God, really? And then they want to know what I have to say, because suddenly I'm connected. But it takes that hustle to get there. So connect with people, collaborate, because sometimes it's difficult to do it on your own until you've made a name for yourself. So associate yourself with those who have made a name. And again, on social media, it's so much easier now to collaborate with different people. You could both be starters, or you could have a group of starters who get together and do something, and it looks larger because it's like more parties involved in this game. So collaboration is a way to be seen and be heard, and that's where you can be noticed until you go solo. So associate yourself with things and movements and groups that that resonate with what you represent. Consistency. When you speak for something, don't change your tune. You can evolve in how you say, because we're all learning, like I said. So I'm also learning a lot about the causes that I fight for. Every day I learn new things, but I use them. But I can't tell people, abuse is abuse and it's not okay. And then 2 days later, I'm like, kill that guy, slap the shit out of him. Doesn't work. You have to be consistent in what you stand for, and you have to be consistent in how you communicate and what your message is. So do those constant self-checks. We talked about this the other day also. Make sure you're consistent. And then finally, credibility. Walk that talk. You build your credibility with your associations, with your connections. You build your credibility through your knowledge, through your learning. So build your training, find training opportunities. There's so much of free learning out there as well now. Certifications, getting associated with certain organizations, building your CV. There are so many things you can do to build your credibility. LinkedIn is your friend in this instance. And build that credibility so that people, as you go forward, it is a journey. It's difficult to do it at 20 unless you've innovated something. But as you go on your journey, the more you build in yourself, the more people will stop questioning you. And the more people will stop questioning what you say. So if Shanuki De Alwis spoke for women's empowerment at the age of 21, nobody, not even her mother, would have given a hoot. Right? And it took me till 42 and a lot of hustle, a lot of association, a lot of connections, a lot of doing different things, a lot of speaking for different things for people to actually say, okay, so Shanuki De Alwis said this, must be true, right? Sometimes it's not, but we're not questioning that. So yeah, build your credibility. So those are the 6 C's: charisma, communicate, connect, collaborate, consistency, and credibility. And finally, number 5, in making your mark and changing the world is resilience. Because like I said before, when you're doing something new, when you're trying to make change is actually going against the norms, right? Obviously, if you're trying to change something, it's not what people's comfort zones are about. So when you're going against the world's comfort zones, there is going to be resistance. That's a truth. In any cause, in any movement, that's a truth. You have to have the ability, if you're going to continue on this journey, which I found with a lot of therapy, you have to find it in yourself to be able to switch off emotionally sometimes, and from stopping the world from draining you. Because when they break your spirit, when they break your own motivation, is when your cause dies with you. Because sometimes it's so much easier for, I speak up for various things. So can you imagine the kind of backlash that I get from various sides? It's like, it's not just about women's empowerment. It's about mental health. It's about animal rights. It's about the environment. Now it's about like queer rights. And it's like bam, 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 bam. So I'm inviting a whole lot more haters than the usual activist is, right? So I have to know that I'm human. I am going to break. I am breakable. I am so vulnerable. I'm like a mass of mental health problems. So I have to learn how to cope, how to build myself, how to build my resilience if I'm going to continue this journey. And I am going to continue this journey because I found that my Ikigai, my purpose, is trying to contribute to change. I need to contribute to change. I need to get rid of injustice in the world. That's kind of what makes me tick, is injustice. I don't like it, whatever form it comes in. So because that's my purpose, and that's the only reason I wake up every day, and I am susceptible to clinical depression. If I don't have that purpose, I will kill myself. I have tried 4 times already. That purpose needs to keep going. And so I need to be resilient, and I need to cope with the world to be able to achieve that purpose. So it takes a lot. It's not easy, but we have to learn how to build our resilience, our mental ability to take on the fight that the world puts up is so much more important to strengthen us, right? And it's all right to break down. I've tried to be a martyr and a superhero all my life. Sometimes I don't let the world see, and this is difficult for me to actually say right now because I never ever tell this to people because everybody looks at me. I've been wearing this mask of superwoman for so long that people look at Shanuki De Alwis, the brand, as somebody who's not unbreakable. She's intimidating. She doesn't take shit. You know, she's body positive. She's blah, blah, blah. And she's got the solution to everything. She can solve my problems. And then every day from midnight to 3 o'clock in the morning, I'm fielding crisis calls from people who want me to solve their problems. And I don't let the world see that I'm also human. Sometimes all this energy just goes for a 6 and I get drained and I can't anymore. And I want to kill myself. And I mean that literally. And I've learned that it's okay to be vulnerable. I don't have to be a superhero all the time. I don't have to let people see me as a superhero all the time. I can still change the world without needing to be seen as the strongest thing out there. So obviously, if you're a part of a community that is constantly being attacked, being rejected, being sort of questioned, if who you are is constantly going against the grain of what society wants you to be, it's going to take its toll on you. So it's so much more important for us to acknowledge that and then figure out, what do I need to do to make myself better, to make myself, deal better? Because we all have to cope. So whether that's getting therapy, whether that's finding your connections with friends who you can talk to, whether it's self-care that you can do, whether it's switching off, which I'm learning is very, very hard for me to do. But my therapist has said, switch the damn hell off. And I need to switch the damn hell off. Sometimes just, for days, just switch off social media, get off social media, stop trying to fix the world, just work on fixing yourself. It's fine. You need to recharge your batteries. We all do. And I sound like a freaking hypocrite to myself right now because this is stuff that my therapist keeps telling me and I don't listen sometimes. But I know I'm understanding how important it is for my own resilience if I want to keep making a mark and breaking barriers out there. I need that energy. I need to recharge my batteries. I need to figure out, what are my emotions? What are my triggers? How do I avoid them? How do I disassociate myself from certain emotional reactions that I can have to certain things? So I don't react as much now. I'm proud to say that I've kind of thickened my skin over the years and built this kind of armory that if people say things to me, I'm like, meh, you know, because I've learned that I've gotten through it before, so I can get through it again. And then stuff that they say, and they say a lot, there are lots of trolls and haters out there, right? And the words they use, words can hurt. The words they use, the actions, their behaviors to try and bring you down. I've learned how invalid those are. And those days they used to affect me because I was so busy trying to be popular. I was so busy trying to be accepted. Now I don't give a bleep. Take it or leave it. This is who I am. This is what I have to say. You don't want to listen? That's fine. But there are 10 other people watching this conversation, so they're going to hear it. That's my mojo. And that's important. That gives me strength. That gives me the knowledge to separate, is this person who's hating on me, is what they're saying valuable to my growth or not? Do they make sense? Because criticism sometimes helps us grow. Are they making sense? Can I learn from it? If they're not, if there's no value in what they're saying, why should it affect me? Why? So yeah, some random little troll wants to call me something. Cool. That's good. And I found that when you deal with bullies and you actually agree with them, they don't know where to go from there. Because otherwise we get like all worked up as activists and stuff. We're like, no, how can you say that? Blah, 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 blah. And if you come to a point where you know that they are not going to change, and then you're like, okay, cool. Thank you for your opinion. Goodbye. What do? They come back with, oh, now it's getting like really boring. I'm going to go, troll somebody else. It works. It works for me. So you have to be able to build your resilience. If you are someone who is sensitive and emotionally triggered very easily, these are things you need to work and accept about yourself, build your self-awareness, and find the tools. Find the tools, find the friends to help you to keep going. And become that team player. You cannot do this alone. Sometimes it looks to the world like I'm changing things on my own, that because I'm the one in the media, I'm the one in the public eye, but there are people that I rely on to help me in this process. And there's a whole army, there's a whole village that's involved in making me who I am. And you have to understand who your village is, whether it's your parents, your support systems, your friends, whoever's, helping you, collaborating. Understand that this is not just about you. This is about everybody else who is part of this movement of yours. And when you know that, you feel like you belong in something, you're not trying to do it alone, and that also helps your resilience and coping skills. Be honest with yourself. When you can't do something, don't try unless you feel ready to. And if you feel like you're never going to be ready, it's okay to change course. It's okay to find something new. It's all right. Nobody's going to stop you from doing that, and your cause is not going to change. And you have to understand how to react and response in a mature and a knowledgeable and intelligent way, so that when you're out there in the spotlight, communicating with the world, and the world sees you taking on these damages that they're flinging at you, it's how you respond that says more about you and your cause and your brand than what they want to do for you, to you. So that's how you build your mental toughness. And essentially in this journey you're going through, in these barriers you're going to break, grow through what you go through. Never, there's something that an ex of mine told me that stays with me. I've learned a lot from a lot of exes. There are two things. I will tell you both these things, right? And this is so important to this journey of making your mark. Offense is taken, never given. That's the word. The phrase is, you take offense, right? You don't give offense. So regardless of their intent, when they reject what you stand for, you can either choose to take offense or you can just move on and continue anyway. If we take offense, we're expending a lot of energy in being sad and mad about it, right? And the second thing was that there are no failures. Everything's a learning. There is nothing called a failure. So every rejection, every sadness, every depression, every struggle and challenge you go through, that is something that becomes somebody else's survival guide or your own, because you've done it, you've gone through it before, you've learned from it. So now when it happens to you again, you know how better to deal with it. So take it as that learning. And that actually makes you feel a lot more positive when you have challenges. It's like, bring it on, I'm tough, I can do this, you know, and you look forward to how you start competing with yourself to see how many challenges you can beat in getting there and being heard. And finally, closing off by saying, keep it real. Never, ever, ever try to be someone you're not when you're out there trying to make a mark. The only way you can make your mark is being authentically you. We talked about this the other day as well. Find your authenticity and speak for yourself before you try to speak for the world. Bring in an essence of who you are when you try to speak for your movement and your message. And yep, that's kind of it for today. And I hope that whatever I said made sense and that you can use some of these learnings. I'm still on that path. I'm still growing. I probably will until I'm like 85 and I give up. And I hope to see you on this journey with me. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Shanuki. As usual, every time after your sessions, I am left to take so much home and ruminate late at night, because the things that you do share with us go well beyond this program as well. So I really hope all fellows take this opportunity to really take in what Shanuki said, because this is not what just makes you a good media person in the queer community, but just makes you a good person, and it'll push you forward. Concepts like Ikigai, to believe in yourself, to keep it real, all of these things are little golden nuggets. Thank you so much, Shanuki, for sharing them. Thank you so much for taking your time out of your busy schedule to be here. We truly are appreciative of that. Thank you to all the FPSL staff who stayed by me, Ranaka, to Manoj, to Shriyal, and of course Sonali, who will be taking a session on in the next coming minutes. I would just also like to point out a few things before we wrap up this last expert session. I would also like to thank our interpreters. They've been doing quite a job these past 5 days, and they've been able to keep this fellowship program accessible to all parts of Sri Lanka. And we really thought that was an important thing moving forward in all our projects, that we try to keep it trilingual, because we want to keep accessibility across the region. And we really hope that we are able to utilize this in our further programs. Thank you again, Shanuki.